Welcome to The Criminologist, the podcast dedicated to educating and entertaining our listeners. We bring you subject matter experts from around the world and share the latest and greatest evidence-based practices and interventions to help individuals desist from a life of crime and delinquency. This podcast avoids stereotypes and biases in favor of the lived experiences of those we can best learn from. Now, please welcome the host of The Criminologist, Joseph Arvidsson.
Hello, and welcome to episode 134 of The Criminologist podcast. Happy to have you all with us today. This week, I am once again coming to you solo, friends, but fear not, for we have some awesome guests lined up in the coming weeks, including the likes of Simon Bunk and Sylvie Blanchette, so please look forward to those interviews. I was at an event recently, and an old trainer and colleague approached me to note that she was just made aware of this podcast, and it dawned on me that as I continue to pick up listeners, which I appreciate, I should take a moment to advise those new listeners, and indeed to remind you seasoned listeners, of another great resource at your disposal. I am speaking, of course, of our YouTube channel, also entitled The Criminologist. Whether you are a practitioner, a trainer, or a student, I think you will find the channel and the collection of media we have assembled quite useful. Allow me to take this opportunity to showcase what is in store for you when you opt to check it out and subscribe. You will note that I have established several playlists, as YouTube refers to them. You will see that in addition to my homegrown videos, which I will preview in a moment, I have also gathered a collection of videos produced by leading thought leaders in the field. When you first log on, you'll see several tabs running from left to right. These begin with Home and go to Videos, Shorts, Playlist, etc. Now, the homepage is where you begin, obviously, and if you click on Videos, it is a compilation of all of our videos in chronological order. I should note that my podcast episodes are also released in video format, so typically you'll see these here. Under Shorts, you'll see some fun, albeit brief videos, and then you'll see Playlist. My goal with creating these playlists was to showcase some other creators, many of whom have indeed appeared on the program. You'll see videos from the likes of Ed the Head Flanagan, who is one of our favorite guests on the show. You'll also see a playlist entitled Black Arts Media, which are all of the videos created by Cam Stevens. I encourage you to go back and listen to all of these podcasts as well as checking out these playlists. You'll then see a playlist for Growth Alliance. These are the videos created by my dear friend, Dr. Sarah Lewis, and her team at Penal Reform Solutions. I've also created a playlist entitled Implementing Evidence-Based Practices. This is a compilation of videos from leaders in the field of implementation science as it pertains to evidence-based practices in corrections. And then finally, you'll see a playlist dear to my heart entitled Desistance from Crime. The majority of these videos were created by yours truly, and again, I'm going to preview some of these in a moment, but also want to point out that I've included other videos here by the likes of Fergus McNeil, Shad Maruna, and others to highlight this important topic. So if, like me, you can't get enough on the topic of desistance from crime, go to the YouTube channel, click on the Desistance from Crime playlist, and you will see a cornucopia of incredible videos to enlighten you on this very, very important topic. The first thing you'll see is a collection of videos that I created around the topic of desistance from crime, and I want to take a moment to preview each of these for you. The first one is simply entitled Desistance from Crime, an Overview. As you'll see in the description, we take a look at this fascinating topic of desistance from crime and pose some questions along the lines of, why do folks stop offending? What does the process of exiting a life of criminality look like? How can the practitioner promote this process in the populations that they supervise? But hey, why don't we go ahead and give you a taste of what's in store in that first overview video on the topic of desistance from crime. Here's a small sample.
Why do folks eventually cease to commit crimes? What are the factors that go into people simply aging out of deviancy? How can you, as a practitioner, accelerate that process? Keep watching to find out the answers to these questions and more.
Keep watching indeed. In the next installment entitled Desistance from Crime and Identity, we discover how identity transformation is a major factor in the process of desisting from crime. Learn more as to how factors such as labeling can have a negative effect on the desistance process, and discover what the practitioner can do to accelerate desistance within their clientele. Most correctional efforts focus on assessing and addressing the variables leading into a life of crime. Desistance is about examining and augmenting the factors that lead individuals out of a life of crime. In this second installment in our series of videos exploring this fascinating topic of desistance from crime, we take a specific look at the role of identity in the desistance process. Here's a small taste.
We all have worked with clients who we know have not committed crimes as of late, but they still root for the bad guys in the movies. They still have their old criminal identity. Desisted folks no longer view themselves that way. They no longer think of themselves as a gangster or a hustler, a pimp or a shot caller, but rather as a father, a good husband, a valued employee, or a citizen. Their old criminal self is long gone. In its place, a new replacement self.
I cannot say enough about the importance of identity transformation in the desistance process. And those of you who consider yourselves risk-need responsivity champions, I would point out that we don't look at identity at all in that RNR framework. So it really is a key aspect of what we can do to further assist our clients in their change process. And speaking of those differences between those two approaches, those two models, if you will, in our next video installment in this Desistance from Crime series, we examine what I refer to as pathways in and pathways out. While the risk-need responsivity model is anchored in assessing and addressing those factors which lead into a life of crime, as noted, desistance theorists examine those pathways out of crime and delinquency and addiction. And what they've discovered is that they are not simply the inverse of each other. That is, desistance is not merely the absence of risk. There's more at play than simply suppressing risk factors. Although that can be effective to a degree, it is only half of the equation. In this next video, we examine those factors leading into delinquency as well as those leading to desistance from crime, or as I like to put it, the pathways in and the pathways out. Here's a small taste.
Now, we could simply have our clients retrace their steps and eliminate all those things, but that begs the question, what are we replacing those factors with along the way? Desistance is not about going back. It's about moving forward. Desistance advocates believe we should not ask our clients to view their lives' pathways as a wasted journey. Rather, view it as the building blocks to their destiny, to their future self. Who would not be the wounded warrior, if you will, without those past missteps? So, what is on the desistance pathway out of crime? Let's take a look.
Let's take a look indeed. That was from our video, Desistance from Crime, Pathways In, Pathways Out, originally dropped on September 7th of 2020. Of course, these and all videos available now. Next, we offer a video installment which begins exploring what the assessment looks like when it comes to the process of desisting from crime. One tool in use today is the DRAOR, the Dynamic Risk Assessment for Offender Reentry, established by Dr. Ralph Sarin and his team. The tool consists of 3 subscales which are reviewed in this video and given context as to the pathways out of crime. Here's a preview.
On the flip side, though, we are also aware of those pathways out of crime, and we're starting to see some progress on this front as well. Dr. Ralph Sarin and his team have actually developed an assessment tool to take a closer look at correlates to desistance from crime. His tool is known as the DRAOR. DRAOR stands for Dynamic Risk Assessment for Offender Reentry. The DRAOR is a scale which looks at indicators broken down into 3 subscales. Those subscales are that of acute, stable, and protective factors. Stable factors, as the name implies, are variables that are slow to change over time for the client. These are things such as peer associations, impulsivity, and problem-solving deficits. Here we're really talking about the root of behaviors. Yes, those are things you'll also see in a criminogenic scale. In fact, they can be thought of as those top-tier criminogenic variables. Acute factors are quicker to change, and because of this, when there is a noted change, action needs to be taken. These are the types of things that can change between office visits. Things such as the client getting fired from their job, breaking up with their significant other, or relapsing. If you're assessing annually, those things may not get noted and certainly may not warrant attention via the case planning process. This is one of the many upsides of the DRAOR. Finally, our third category or subscale is that of protective factors. These are dynamic variables made up of both the external strengths and internal assets of our clients. Think of protective items as those things in our clients' lives which shield them against risk. And you guessed it, having a prosocial identity is one of the items measured here. And recall in our last episode, we talked about pathways out of crime. Well, protective factors are the things in the lives of justice-involved individuals that support change and help them down the pathway towards desistance.
If you or your agency are interested in learning more about this tool to measure desistance correlates, I encourage you to reach out and we can talk about getting you trained and building capacity with the DRAOR assessment tool. In our next video installment on the topic of desistance from crime, we take a specific look at interventions. It's one thing to be aware of the phenomenon of desistance from crime, another to be able to assess those desistance correlates, but how do you move forward and actually intervene? Let's find out with a sampling of our next video installment.
Interventions may fall along the lines of a cost-benefits analysis, behavior chain, traditional social skills geared towards negative peers. Again, those are criminogenic, so we would expect to see some of those traditional cognitive interventions. Acute factors address self-control issues and lifestyle aggravators. For illustration, our client today presents indicators in this subsection of substance abuse, opportunity and access to victim, and their living situation. So for interventions, and again, as noted in our previous chapter in this series, acute factors can change rapidly in the lives of our clients. Here, we could see a relapse, change of housing, and access to victim all being tied together. And again, typical risk need responsivity assessments are done annually, so months can go by without these acute flare-ups being detected and addressed. The DRAER is done much, much more frequently, thereby detecting these factors in time to remedy them. Protective factors address social support and prosocial identity changes. Yes, identity changes. In the DRAER, the presence of protective items is reflective of those things in our clients' lives which shield them against risk. Protective factors are the things in the lives of justice-involved individuals that support change and help them down the pathway towards desistance. In our client today, let's say they have good social supports, a strong prosocial identity, and are really open and responsive to advice. In addition to traditional cognitive behavioral interventions, at the Paragon Group, we've designed tools to help clients make that transformation towards desistance by imagining their future crime-free self and augmenting their social capital.
You heard me make reference to identity transformation there yet again, and I cannot impress this upon you enough. Just as we know the importance of the thought-behavior link in the risk-need responsivity framework, identity transformation is also linked to behavior change and a key component in the desistance approaches. In fact, our next video highlights just that, how to promote identity change in our clientele. Let's have a listen.
Another approach or tool that we advocate here at the Paragon Group really relies on the concept of self-actualization. Ask your client to imagine that they are weeks, months, or even years in the future. Now, vividly picture your future self, only this version of you is crime-free. Not only have you long since stopped committing crimes, you're a different person in so many other ways. You have your dream job, your circle of friends is also crime-free and provide a great support network for you in attaining your dreams. Most importantly, you no longer see yourself as you do today. You have taken on a whole new identity. Now, ask your client to write a short story, a poem, or even a song describing that future crime-free you. This simple act of future-focused self-visualization can go a long way in altering that all-important pillar of desistance, identity.
If you are like me, you love sinking your teeth into a good case study. And so I thought, why not use a case study to illustrate the themes of desistance from crime? I did so in this next video installment, in which I highlight the story of actor Danny Trejo. Many people will recognize Danny Trejo from his numerous film and television roles, but most probably don't realize that Danny was formerly justice involved and a great illustration of what the desistance trajectory may look like. So in this next video installment, I did just that, and I juxtaposed some of these concepts with Danny's own trajectory. Let's have a sample listen of that video installment next.
To date, Danny Trejo has appeared in over 300 movies. So let's take a look at Trejo's life now.
through the lens of both secondary and tertiary desistance. How does Danny view himself? He once said, "If you're going to be a criminal 24 hours a day." Is that how he views himself now? A 24/7 criminal, convicted felon, an inmate, a heroin addict? Or rather, as an actor, a restaurateur, a businessman, and of course, a father. And as to tertiary desistance, what does that acceptance within a community look like? Again, he is part of, among other things, the acting community. And as the owner of Trejo's Donuts, as well as brands of beer, coffee, and other merchandise, the business community. And as I mentioned, as the father of two, he's a family man. Danny Trejo is sitting firmly on the desistance bench. And finally, the last video I wish to highlight for you today. It's entitled Risk, Need, Responsivity Meets Desistance Theory. This is ideal for students or practitioners who wish to have a very digestible tutorial explaining the correlates into crime, as well as the pathways out of criminality. This is ideal to kick off a classroom course or a practitioner training. It is suited for corrections, community corrections, or any of the other helping professionals who serve justice-involved individuals. Let's have a taste. Now, if you adhere to the risk, need, responsivity model, your work is done here. Do this, and you will see some pretty decent effect sizes when it comes to reductions in recidivism. But if you are more forward-thinking and want to guide your clients down the pathway of desistance, keep watching. You see, desistance is not just about addressing those factors that drive people into crime and calling it a day. On the desistance pathway, we see variables which build up and augment. Factors underlying human capital, one's life resume, if you will. And also the building up of social capital. Social capital is not simply about replacing negative peers with positive peers. Social capital is all about surrounding oneself with folks who provide and lead us towards opportunities. Specifically, opportunities which act as off-ramps out of crime. Desistance also involves the rewriting of scripts, from a condemnation script to a redemption script. Again, not about going back, but rather moving forward, knowing everything in our lives has led us to the person we are today. Desistance is about changing the crime trajectory out of crime. And we can do this by highlighting as many pathways out as we can for our clients, not simply rehashing the pathways in. And again, R&R and desistance models are not in competition. They are 2 points on a continuum. I hope this has enticed you to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Criminologist. As referenced, if you are a trainer, a student, or a curious practitioner, I feel strongly that you will find this a valuable resource as you build your own human capital on your journey of growth and development. And before we go, let's get a recap of all the benefits of subscribing to the Criminologist YouTube channel. Imagine you are at a correctional and or criminology and or implementation science conference and you score a seat at the head table reserved for all the keynote speakers. How awesome would it be to listen in on the conversations of folks like Shad Bernuna, Fergus McNeil, Sarah Lewis, Jane Mulcahy, Glenn Tapia, Guy Bergone, Cam Stevens, James Bonta, and so many more? Well, no need to dream about that anymore. I brought all of those thought leaders together for you on my own YouTube channel, The Criminologist. In addition to my original content, I've created individual playlists featuring videos of all these folks and more. Subscribe to the Criminologist channel now and reserve your seat at the head table. back next week with a fresh episode. In the meantime, you may contact the show or reach out to us through our website, the Paragon Group, LLC.com, for training or presentations as to core correctional skills, implementation, or, of course, the topic of desistance from crime. If you have questions or comments as to this podcast, feel free to contact the show directly via our email at thecriminologistpodcast@gmail.com. That's thecriminologistpodcast@gmail.com. Remember to follow us through our Facebook and Instagram pages at The Criminologist Podcast. New, fun images are being added all the time to those feeds. You don't want to miss out. The Criminologist Media Group is also on Twitter at Crim Media Group. That's CRIM Media Group. Go ahead and give us a follow. You may also connect with me, Joseph Arvidsson, on LinkedIn, and follow both the Criminologist Podcast and the Paragon Group on our LinkedIn pages. Hey, lastly, if you've not already done so, check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Criminologist, for additional content as to the themes of this podcast. Merchandise is now available. Visit us at the Paragon Group, LLC.com, and click on the tab entitled Shop. Finally, if you believe in what we're doing on the show, if you're part of the movement, please spread the word. Tell a friend or a coworker or a colleague about us. Ask them to subscribe to the podcast. And of course, do so yourself if you've not already done so. And always remember, folks, there's no them, there's only us. We will be back next week with a fresh episode. In the meantime, you may contact the show or reach out to us through our website, the Paragon Group, LLC.com, for barking dogs or berberders or flink flink flongs and sleek doos.
The Criminologist Podcast is a production of the Paragon Group, LLC. For speaking engagements, interviews, program design, or training opportunities, please visit us at theparagongroup.llc.com. If you enjoyed the show, you can find more content and videos on our YouTube channel, The Criminologist. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Both the Criminologist Podcast and the Criminologist channel are brought to you by the Criminologist Media Group. Be sure to give us a 5-star review, and thanks for listening.